Hey everyone, I'm Mono Scaling. I'm here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now get comfortable and relax. My name is Nathan Bell. I need to write this down while I still remember things clearly, while I can still tell the difference between what happened and what I think happened. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to be possible. It started 3 weeks ago in the Badlands of South Dakota. My buddy Marcus and I had been planning this RV trip for months. We'd rented a 26-foot Class C motorhome. Nothing fancy, but it had a bathroom and a bed over the cab, which was all we needed. The plan was simple. Drive from Minneapolis to the Black Hills, spend a few days hiking, maybe hit some casinos, decompress from our jobs. Marcus worked in IT, I was in insurance adjusting. We were both 34, both divorced, both tired. The Badlands weren't even supposed to be part of the trip. We just planned to drive through, maybe stop for photos. But Marcus wanted to see the Sage Creek campground because it was primitive. No hookups, no facilities, just parking spots in the middle of nowhere. Real camping in, he called it. I didn't care either way. We got there around 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, October. The season was mostly over, so the campground was nearly empty. Just us, an older couple in a vintage Airstream about 100 yards away, and a solo guy in a conversion van parked at the far end. The landscape was exactly what you'd expect. Layered rock formations, scrubby grass, that strange feeling of being on another planet. The sun was bright and hard, the kind that makes you squint even with sunglasses. We set up in spot 17. Marcus wanted to cook steaks on the camp grill, so we got that going while I opened beers. The wind picked up as the sun started to drop, carrying dust across the flats. Everything had this yellow tint to it, like an old photograph. "This is perfect," Marcus said, flipping the steaks. "No cell service, no bullshit. Just us and the rocks." I agreed at the time. We ate around the picnic table as the sun set. The sky went through the usual progression: orange, pink, purple, that deep blue before black. Stars started appearing. The older couple had gone inside their Airstream. The conversion van guy was sitting in a folding chair smoking. I could see the red glow of his cigarette. "Think he's out here cooking meth or something?" Marcus joked. "Probably just wants to be alone." Then he picked the right place. We stayed up until around 11, drinking and talking about nothing important. Marcus had recently started seeing someone, a woman from his gym, and he kept bringing her up, then catching himself and changing the subject. I knew he felt guilty talking about relationships around me since my divorce had been rough, but I didn't mind. I was past that. We went to bed around midnight. I took the bed over the cab. Marcus had the converted dinette. The mattress was thin and uncomfortable, but I was tired enough that it didn't matter. I fell asleep listening to the wind rocking the RV slightly on its suspension. I woke up at 5:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone, even though it had no signal. The sun was rising, painting the rocks outside my window, that deep red color you get sometimes at dawn. I lay there for a few minutes, debating whether to go back to sleep or get up and make coffee. That's when I noticed the second sun. At first, I thought it was a reflection, maybe on the window or in my glasses, which were on the tiny shelf next to the bed. But when I put my glasses on, it was still there. A second sun, smaller than the first, hovering about 15 degrees to the left of the main sunrise. It was dimmer, more silver than gold, but definitely there. Definitely real. I sat up, hitting my head on the low ceiling. I pressed my face against the window, looking out at the Badlands. The second sun cast its own light across the formations, creating a second set of shadows that overlapped with the first. The effect was disorienting, like looking at a badly aligned photograph. "Marcus," I called out. "You awake?" No answer. I climbed down from the cab bed, trying not to make too much noise. He was still passed out on the dinette, one arm hanging off the mattress. I shook his shoulder. "Marcus, wake up." He groaned and opened one eye. "What time is it?" "Almost 6. Come look at this." "Look at what?" "Just come here." He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. I pointed out the windshield toward the eastern horizon. You see that? He squinted, then reached for his glasses on the counter, put them on, looked again. The sunrise? The two sunrises. He stared for a long moment. What are you talking about? There are two suns out there. Look, one there, one there. I pointed at each one. Marcus looked at me, then back out the window. Dude, I see one sun. Are you still drunk? I had 3 beers. Look, right there. I pointed directly at the second sun. It was clear as day, getting brighter as the dawn progressed. Nathan, there's one sun. I don't know what you're seeing, but there's one sun. I stared at him. He looked genuinely confused, not like he was messing with me. I turned back to the window. Both suns were still there, both casting light and shadow across the landscape. You really don't see it, I said. See what? I see the sun coming up. That's it. I didn't say anything else. Marcus went to use the tiny bathroom and I stood at the window, watching the dual sunrise. My heart was pounding. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. I was seeing 2 suns and Marcus couldn't see the second one. I thought about optical illusions, about sundogs, those bright spots you sometimes see in the sky when ice crystals reflect sunlight. But this wasn't that. This was a distinct, separate sun. And as it rose higher, it didn't disappear or fade. It stayed constant. Marcus came out of the bathroom and started making coffee. You feel okay? He asked. I'm fine. Maybe you should drink some water. We're at altitude, and you might be dehydrated. I'm not dehydrated. Okay, man, just checking. We had coffee and instant oatmeal. Marcus talked about hiking into the formations, maybe finding some fossils. I nodded and made appropriate responses, but I kept glancing out the window. The second sun climbed higher alongside the first. By 8 a.m., they were both well above the horizon, and the overlapping shadows had created a confusing patchwork of light and dark across the campground. The older couple emerged from their airstream. The woman was short, maybe 65, with white hair pulled back in a bun. The man was taller, wearing a baseball cap and cargo shorts despite the morning chill. They set up camp chairs and sat drinking coffee, looking out at the view. I'm going to go talk to them, I said. Why? Just want to be friendly. Marcus shrugged. Sure. I walked over to their site. As I got closer, I studied their faces, looking for any sign that they saw what I saw. They both smiled as I approached. Morning, the man said. Beautiful day. Morning. Yeah, it's nice. How long have you folks been here? We got in yesterday afternoon, the woman said. Drove straight through from Rapid City. You? Same. Me and my friend over there. I gestured toward our RV. I'm Nathan. Bill? The man said. This is my wife, Carol. We shook hands. I looked up at the sky, then back at them. Can I ask you something? Does anything look unusual to you? About the sky? Bill followed my gaze. Unusual how? I don't know. Different than normal. Carol looked up too. It's a clear day. Maybe a little hazy on the horizon, but nothing unusual. Why? I hesitated. If I told them I was seeing 2 suns, they'd think I was crazy or on drugs. No reason. Just thought the light looked different out here. It does, Bill said. The Badlands have a special quality. The rock formations, the altitude, makes everything sharper. I nodded and made small talk for another minute before excusing myself. As I walked back to our RV, I looked at the sky again. Both suns were there, climbing toward noon, the second one maintaining its position relative to the first. Marcus wanted to go hiking, so we locked up the RV and headed out toward the formations. The trails in Sage Creek are minimal, mostly just paths worn by bison and other animals. We followed one that led into a maze of eroded hills and gulches. The double shadows made navigation difficult. Every rock, every formation cast 2 shadows, and my depth perception kept failing. I stumbled several times, catching myself on rocks that seemed closer or farther than they actually were. You okay? Marcus asked after the third time. Yeah, just not watching where I'm going. You're acting weird. You sure you feel all right? I'm fine. We hiked for about 2 hours, going deeper into the formations. The landscape was beautiful in an alien way. Layers of rock and shades of gray and rust, eroded into impossible shapes. We saw some bighorn sheep in the distance and a prairie dog colony. No other people. Around noon, we stopped for water. We were standing on a ridge overlooking a wide valley. I pulled out my phone to check the time. 12:14 p.m. No signal, of course. I looked up at the sky. Both suns were directly overhead now, separated by about 30 degrees. The second sun was still dimmer, still more silver than gold, but it was definitely there. The shadows on the ground were a mess, overlapping and contradicting each other. Marcus, I said carefully, I need you to do something for me. What? Just humor me. Look at the sky and tell me exactly what you see. He looked up, shading his eyes with his hand. The sky, the sun, some clouds way off to the west. That's it. You see one sun? Yes, Nathan, I see one sun. Why are you so fixated on this? Because I see two. He stared at me. 2 suns. Yes. Like you think there are 2 suns in the sky right now. I don't think. I see them. Marcus took off his sunglasses and cleaned them on his shirt, then put them back on and looked up again. Nathan, there's one sun, I promise you, one sun. I know what I'm seeing. Then maybe you need to see a doctor. Maybe the altitude is messing with you or you had a stroke or something. I didn't have a stroke. How do you know? I didn't answer. We stood there in silence for a minute. Finally, Marcus said, Look, let's head back. Maybe you need to rest. I'm fine. You're seeing 2 suns. That's not fine. We hiked back to the campground in silence. I was angry, though I wasn't sure at what. At Marcus for not believing me. At myself for seeing something that apparently wasn't there. At whatever was happening to me. When we got back to the RV, the conversion van guy was outside, working on something under his hood. He was maybe 50, thin with long gray hair tied back. He looked up as we approached. Engine trouble? Marcus called out. Just doing some maintenance, Increen, the guy said. His voice was rough, like he smoked a lot. You guys have a good hike? Yeah, it was nice, Marcus said. I was studying the guy's face, trying to read him. He glanced at me, and for just a second I saw something in his expression. A flicker of recognition, maybe, or understanding. Then it was gone. The light out here is strange, I said. The guy nodded slowly. That it is. You notice anything unusual about it? He wiped his hands on a rag, looking at me steadily. Depends on what you mean by unusual. Just anything that stands out. He glanced up at the sky, then back at me. I've been coming out here for years. Every time it's different. The light, the shadows, the way things look. Some days it plays tricks on you. What kind of tricks? He shrugged. You see things, or you don't see things. Hard to say what's real sometimes in a place like this. Marcus was shifting uncomfortably. Well, we'll let you get back to it. Nice talking to you. Likewise. As we walked back to our RV, I looked back once. The van guy was watching me, not in a threatening way, but with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Inside the RV, Marcus turned on the propane stove to make lunch. That guy was weird. He seemed okay to me. He looked at you like he knew something. Knew what? I don't know. Just weird vibes. We ate sandwiches and chips. I couldn't stop thinking about what the van guy had said. You see things or you don't see things. Like he understood what I was experiencing. That afternoon, I tried to nap but couldn't. I lay in the cab bed staring out the window at the 2 suns now descending toward the western horizon. The second sun maintained its position, always about 30 degrees offset from the first. I pulled out my phone and tried to take a photo. But the second sun didn't show up in the image. Just the first one, alone in the sky. I deleted the photo and put my phone away. Around 5 p.m. I heard voices outside. I climbed down to find Marcus talking to Bill and Carol. They'd walked over to invite us for drinks at sunset. "We've got a nice bourbon," Bill was saying. "Too much for just the two of us." "That's kind of you," Marcus said. "We'd love to." I nodded in agreement, though I wasn't sure I wanted to socialize. But maybe being around other people would help. Maybe whatever was wrong with me would correct itself. We walked over to their site at 6. They'd set up 4 chairs in a semicircle facing west, where the suns, or sun to everyone else, were beginning to set. Carol poured bourbon into plastic cups while Bill talked about their travels. They'd been on the road for 2 years, visiting every national park they could. "This is our 4th time to the Badlands," Carol said. "It never gets old. There's something about this place." "What do you mean?" I asked. She thought about it. "It's hard to explain. It feels ancient, timeless, like you're standing in a place that exists outside normal time." "That's poetic," Marcus said, smiling. "It's true," Bill said. "Some places have that quality. The Badlands, Monument Valley, parts of the desert Southwest. You feel it when you're there." We drank and watched the sunset. The dual suns descended together, creating a complex interplay of colors and shadows across the formations. To me, it was beautiful and terrifying. To everyone else, it was just a sunset. "You ever see anything out here you couldn't explain?" I asked. Bill and Carol exchanged a look. "Like what?" Bill asked. "Just unusual things, strange phenomena." "This is fossil country," Carol said. "Sometimes you find things that make you think about how old the earth is, how much time has passed. That can be strange in its own way." "But nothing like anomalies? Things in the sky, maybe?" Another look between them. Bill took a sip of his bourbon. "Why do you ask?" I hesitated. Marcus was watching me with concern. "No reason. Just curious." We finished our drinks as the sun set. When it was fully dark, we thanked Bill and Carol and headed back to our RV. The stars were out, thick and bright without light pollution. I looked up and felt a wave of dizziness. The stars seemed wrong somehow, their positions off. "You going to tell me what that was about?" Marcus asked when we were inside. "What? All those questions. You're acting paranoid." "I'm not paranoid. I'm trying to understand what's happening." "What's happening is you're seeing things that aren't there. That's concerning, Nathan. We should drive into Wall tomorrow. Find a clinic or something." "I'm not sick." "Then what's going on?" I sat down at the dinette. "I don't know. But something's wrong. The light, the shadows, everything feels off." Marcus sat across from me. "Look, man, I'm worried about you. This isn't normal behavior. Seeing 2 suns, interrogating the neighbors, what's next?" "I'm not interrogating anyone." "You kind of are, though." We argued for a few minutes before both giving up. Marcus went to bed early and I sat in the dark RV looking out the windshield at the stars. Around midnight I saw a light moving between the formations. A flashlight maybe, or a headlamp. It bobbed and weaved, disappearing behind rocks, reappearing. I watched it for maybe 20 minutes before it went out. I slept badly. I kept waking up, checking the time, looking out the window. At 3:47 a.m., I woke to see the second sun already visible on the eastern horizon, rising ahead of the first. It was like a preview of the coming dawn, silver and cold. I got up and went outside, wearing just my jeans and a sweatshirt. The air was cold, probably in the 40s. The ground was hard under my bare feet. I walked away from the RV, toward the van at the end of the campground. The van guy was sitting in his folding chair facing east. He didn't turn as I approached, but he spoke. "You see it too?" It wasn't a question. I stopped a few feet away. "The second sun?" "Yes." "How long have you been seeing it?" 3 days now, since I got here." I felt a mix of relief and terror. Relief that I wasn't alone. Terror at the confirmation that something was genuinely wrong. What is it? He finally turned to look at me. In the pre-dawn darkness, I could barely make out his features. I don't know. I've been trying to figure it out. No one else sees it. No, just us. Why? I don't know that either. We stood in silence, watching the second sun rise. Behind it, the first sun began to appear, and soon both were climbing the sky in their strange parallel ascent. What happens if it doesn't stop? I asked. I've been thinking about that. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe we see 3 suns, then 4. Maybe we see things that are even stranger. Or maybe we're having a shared hallucination. Maybe, but I don't think so. Why not? He pointed at the ground. Look at your shadow. I looked down. 2 shadows stretched out from my feet, cast by the 2 suns overlapping and crossing. What about it? Touch it. Try to step on your shadow. I moved my foot, trying to step on one of the shadows. As my foot came down, both shadows shifted, moving away from where my foot landed. It was a small movement, maybe an inch, but definitely there. They're avoiding you, the van guy said. Shadows don't do that. My heart was pounding. This isn't possible. And yet, I looked back toward our RV. Marcus would be waking up soon. I needed to get back before he noticed I was gone. What are we supposed to do? I don't know, maybe wait, maybe leave, I haven't decided yet. If we leave, will it stop? I don't know. I walked back to the RV as the sky grew lighter. Both suns were fully risen now, painting everything in their conflicted light. Inside, Marcus was still asleep. I climbed back into the cab bed and lay there, staring at the ceiling, until I heard him stirring around 7. We went through our morning routine: coffee, oatmeal, small talk. Marcus wanted to drive into Wall to resupply and get lunch at the famous drugstore there. I agreed, hoping that leaving the campground might help. We took the RV north on Highway 240, winding through the formations. I drove while Marcus navigated. The double shadows on the road made it difficult to judge distances. I kept drifting toward the shoulder, overcorrecting, drifting again. You want me to drive? Marcus asked after the 3rd time. I'm fine. You're not fine. Pull over. I pulled over at an overlook. We switched seats and Marcus took the wheel. As we drove, I looked back at the Badlands receding behind us. Both suns hung in the sky, relentless. Wall was a small town, the kind that exists primarily to service tourists visiting the Badlands. We parked at Wall Drug, the famous tourist trap that advertised free ice water for hundreds of miles. Inside, it was crowded with families and retirees, all moving through the maze of shops and restaurants. I looked at them all, trying to see any sign that they saw what I saw, but everyone seemed normal, unconcerned, laughing and taking photos. Marcus bought some snacks and souvenirs while I wandered through the stores. In one section, they had books about the Badlands, natural history, geology, Native American legends. I picked up one about Lakota folklore and flipped through it. There was a section about the sacred nature of the land, about spirits and visions. One passage caught my eye. The Lakota people believe that the Badlands are a place where the veil between worlds is thin. Those who spend time there may see things that others cannot, visions granted by the spirits, or warnings of things to come. I put the book back. Visions, warnings. Maybe that's all this was, some kind of vision brought on by the place itself. But that didn't explain the van guy seeing the same thing. We ate lunch at the cafe and Marcus bought a Wall Drug bumper sticker. As we walked back to the RV, he said, "Feeling any better, now that we're away from the campground?" I looked up. Both suns were there, exactly where they'd been. Not really. Nathan, I know I need help, but not here. Let's go back to the campground, pack up and head home. I'll see my doctor when we get back. Marcus looked relieved. Okay, yeah, that's a good plan. We drove back to Sage Creek. It was around 3 p.m. when we arrived. As we pulled into our spot, I noticed that Bill and Carol's Airstream was gone. The site was empty. Huh, Marcus said. Guess they left. I felt a pang of unease but didn't say anything. We started breaking down our camp, disconnecting the water and power, which were just formalities at a primitive site we'd been running on the RV's internal systems. Marcus secured the awning while I stowed the chairs and grill. I looked over at the van. The guy was standing next to it watching us. He raised a hand and I raised mine back. "You going to say goodbye?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, give me a minute." I walked over to the van. Up close I could see it was old, probably from the 70s, with faded paint and rust around the wheel wells. The guy was loading gear into the back. "You're leaving," he said. "Yeah, we're heading back to Minnesota." "Probably smart. What about you?" "I'm staying a little longer. I want to see how this plays out." "How what plays out?" He gestured at the sky. "This, the second sun, whatever it means." "You think it means something?" "Everything means something." I didn't know what to say to that. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, I asked, "What's your name?" "Robert." "I'm Nathan." "I know. I heard your friend call you that." "Robert, do you think we're going crazy?" He thought about it. "No. I think we're seeing something real. I just don't know what it is yet. But no one else sees it. That doesn't make it less real. Just means we're different somehow. Changed. Changed how? I don't know." He closed the van doors and turned to face me. "But I'll tell you this. I don't think it stops here. I think whatever this is, it's just starting." That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. I heard Marcus calling my name. "I should go," I said. "Safe travels, Nathan." "You too." I walked back to our RV. Marcus had everything ready to go. We climbed in, and he started the engine. As we pulled out of the campground, I looked back at Robert standing next to his van, watching us leave. Then we rounded a curve, and he disappeared from view. We drove east, back toward the highway. The Badlands stretched out around us, ancient and indifferent. Both suns were beginning their descent toward the western horizon. "I'm glad we're leaving," Marcus said. That place was starting to get to me. "Yeah. Not just the second sun thing with you, the whole vibe. Too isolated." I didn't respond. I was watching the landscape roll by, the formations and the sky. About 20 minutes from the campground, as we were approaching the park boundary, Marcus suddenly slammed on the brakes. "What the hell?" I looked forward. The road ahead was blocked. Not by a vehicle or a fallen rock, but by something else. The air itself seemed wrong, warped like heat shimmer, but more solid. Through it, I could see the road continuing, but it was distorted, bent. "Do you see that?" I asked. "Yeah, I see it. What is that?" So he could see this. Whatever it was visible to both of us. That should have been reassuring, but it wasn't. Marcus edged the RV forward slowly. As we got closer to the distortion, I felt a pressure building in my ears, like the air pressure was changing. The RV's engine started to sputter. "Maybe we should turn around," I said. "And go where? Back to the campground?" "I don't know, just not through that." Marcus put the RV in reverse and started backing up, but when I looked back, the road behind us was gone. Not blocked, gone. Just empty space where the asphalt should have been, like the road had been erased. "Marcus, I see it." We were boxed in. Ahead, the warped air. Behind, nothingness. On both sides, the Badlands formations rose up, impassable for a vehicle. "What do we do?" Marcus's voice was tight with panic. I looked up through the windshield. Both suns were directly overhead now, and they were doing something strange, moving closer together. The distance between them was shrinking. "They're converging," I said. "What are?" "The suns." Marcus looked up. "I only see one sun, Nathan." "You don't see them moving toward each other?" "I see one sun, just one. But to me, it was clear. The two suns were spiraling toward each other, their light beginning to overlap. Where the light met, reality seemed to shimmer and break, like a photograph poorly stitched together. The RV's engine died. All the lights on the dashboard went dark. We sat in sudden silence, just the wind outside and our breathing. "Try starting it again," I said. Marcus turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Fuck, he whispered. The pressure in my ears was building. I could feel my heartbeat in my temples. Outside, the light was becoming painful to look at. Too bright, both suns now merged into a single blazing point directly above us. We need to get out, I said. Out where? There's nowhere to go. Anywhere but here. I opened the passenger door and stepped out. The ground beneath my feet felt unstable, like standing on a ship in rough water. Marcus came out the driver's side and we stood next to the RV, looking around. The Badlands were transforming. The rock formations were shifting, growing, shrinking, rearranging themselves like pieces on a chessboard. The sky was the wrong color, not blue, not quite purple. Something in between that hurt to look at. Nathan, what's happening? I don't know. A sound started then, low and resonant, like a note played on an organ. It came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through the ground and air. It grew louder, and with it, the landscape began to fragment. Pieces of the world were coming apart, not like an explosion, more like disassembly, like watching a building being deconstructed in reverse time-lapse. Rock formations dissolved into their component molecules, which hung in the air like clouds. The road beneath our feet cracked and separated, the pieces drifting away. Marcus grabbed my arm. We have to wake up. This is a dream. It has to be. It's not a dream. Then what is it? I didn't have an answer. We watched as our RV began to come apart, metal and plastic and fabric separating, floating away in slow motion. Everything was unmaking itself, and then I saw them. Others like us standing in the dissolving landscape. Robert from the van, Bill and Carol from the Airstream. Others I didn't recognize. A woman in hiking gear, a family of 4, a lone elderly man. All of them frozen, watching, as the world came undone around them. They were all seeing it now. The second sun, the convergence, the ending. The sound grew louder, and the merged suns pulsed with light that shouldn't exist. I closed my eyes but could still see it through my eyelids, burning into my retinas. Marcus was screaming, but I couldn't hear him over the sound. I felt his hand slip from my arm as he was pulled away, not by wind or force, but by the unmaking itself. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. Just gone, with no indication he'd ever been there. I was alone in the dissolving Badlands. The ground beneath me was the last thing left, a small circle of earth that kept getting smaller. I looked up at the merged suns, now a single point of impossible light. And as I watched, it began to split again. But this time it split into 3. 3 suns, hanging in the fragmenting sky. I understood then. This was just beginning. The second sun had been a preview, a warning, a sign of what was coming. 3 suns, then 4, then more, until reality itself couldn't hold together under the weight of them all. I knelt on my shrinking island of ground and waited for the end, but it didn't come. The light faded, the sound stopped. The world reassembled itself, not back to what it had been, but into something close enough. The rock formations reformed, slightly different. The sky returned to blue with only one sun visible. I was standing next to our RV on the road alone. The engine was running. The dashboard lights were on. Everything seemed normal. I opened the driver's door and looked inside. No Marcus. His sunglasses were on the passenger seat. His water bottle was in the cup holder, but no Marcus. I got in and sat there, trying to make sense of what had happened. My hands were shaking. I checked my phone. 4:23 p.m. I checked it last at 3:17 p.m. when we'd left the campground, over an hour gone. I started driving. I don't remember making the decision. I just did it. The RV responded normally. Steering was fine. Everything worked. I drove back toward the campground. When I got there, it was empty. No van, no Airstream, no Robert. Just empty parking spots and the endless Badlands stretching to the horizon. I parked in our original spot and turned off the engine. I sat there as the sun, the single normal sun, set in the west. Stars came out. The night was clear and cold. Around midnight, I got out and looked at the sky. The stars were in their proper places. The moon rose, singular and familiar. Everything was as it should be. Except Marcus was gone. Robert was gone. Bill and Carol were gone. And when I looked down at the ground, I didn't cast a shadow despite standing in the bright moonlight. I got back in the RV and tried to sleep. At 5:47 a.m., I woke up. I looked out the window and saw the second sun beginning to rise. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still here at the Sage Creek campground waiting. The second sun rises every morning, climbs the sky alongside the first, and sets every evening. No one else is here to see it. The campground stays empty, though I sometimes see tire tracks in the dirt that weren't there the day before. I tried to leave twice. Both times the road disappeared behind me, and I had to turn back. I've been exploring the formations during the day, searching for some sign of the others. Marcus, Robert, anyone. I find things sometimes. A toothbrush that might be Marcus's. Tire tracks from a van. A folding chair with worn canvas. But no people. At night I see lights moving through the formations. I tried to follow them once, but they led me in circles until I gave up and came back to the RV. The suns are getting closer together again. Every day, the distance between them shrinks by maybe a degree or two. I've been tracking it, making marks on a map. At the current rate, they'll converge again in about 11 days. I don't know what will happen then. Another dissolution? Another reset? Or maybe something else entirely. I'm writing this down because I want there to be a record. I want someone to know what happened here, even if I can't explain it fully, even if no one believes it. If you're reading this, it means you found the RV. Maybe I left it behind. Maybe something else happened. Either way, take this as a warning. The Badlands are not what they seem. The land here is old and it remembers things, it shows you things. And sometimes it doesn't let you leave. I can see the second sun rising now through the windshield. It's 5:47 a.m. The same time I first saw it. The same time I wake up every morning. Tomorrow I might see a third sun. The day after that, a fourth. Or maybe tomorrow there will be no suns at all. I guess I'll find out. My name is Nathan Bell, and I am the only person who can see what's coming. That's what I keep telling myself anyway, because the alternative, that I'm the only person left to see anything at all, is too terrible to accept. The suns are rising. I should go outside and watch. My name is Jacob Morgan. What happened at Lake Drummond in the Great Dismal Swamp last September still doesn't make sense to me, but I need to tell someone. The police didn't believe half of what I said, and I don't blame them. If someone told me this story, I'd think they were lying or crazy too. Amy and I had been together for 3 years when we decided to take the RV trip. Things had been rough between us for about 6 months. Not fighting exactly, just distant. She worked long hours at the hospital as a nurse, and I was traveling constantly for sales calls. We barely saw each other, and when we did, we were too tired to really talk. The RV rental was her idea. She said we needed to get away from everything, just the two of us, no distractions. I wasn't thrilled about camping in a swamp, but Amy had always wanted to visit the Dismal Swamp. She liked weird, off-the-beaten-path places. I would have preferred a beach resort, but I figured if it made her happy and gave us time together, it was worth it. We packed up the RV on a Thursday morning in mid-September and drove down from Richmond. The weather was still warm, but not unbearable, and the forecast looked clear for the weekend. The campground was more isolated than I expected. The website had made it sound like a regular RV park with hookups and facilities, but when we got there, it was basically a clearing in the woods with gravel pads for maybe a dozen RVs. Only 2 other sites were occupied when we arrived. A retired couple in a massive motorhome at the far end, and a family with young kids in a trailer near the entrance. The camp host, an older man named Earl, checked us in and gave us a map of the area. He seemed friendly enough, but had this way of looking at us that made me uncomfortable, like he was sizing us up for something. "Y'all picked a quiet time to visit," he said, folding his arms across his chest. He was wearing overalls and a faded baseball cap. "Most folks clear out after Labor Day." "That's what we wanted," Amy said, smiling. "Peace and quiet." Earl nodded slowly. You'll get plenty of that out here. Just stick to the marked trails if you go hiking. Swamp's bigger than people think, and it's easy to get turned around. Cell service is pretty much non-existent once you're in the trees. We thanked him and drove to our assigned spot, which was in the middle section of the campground, surrounded by dense forest on 3 sides. The trees were tall, mostly cypress and tupelo, and they blocked out a lot of the sunlight even though it was only mid-afternoon. Amy was excited though. She jumped out as soon as I put the RV in park and started taking pictures with her phone. "This is perfect," she said. "So quiet." She was right about that. It was quiet. Too quiet, actually. No birds, no insects, nothing. I told myself it was just because we were in a swamp, and maybe that's how they were, but it bothered me. I've never liked complete silence. It makes my skin crawl. We spent the first evening setting up, leveling the RV, connecting the water and electricity, arranging our stuff inside. Amy made dinner on the little stove, just pasta and jarred sauce, and we ate outside at the picnic table while the sun went down. The other campers had turned in early, and we couldn't see their lights through the trees. It felt like we were completely alone. "This was a good idea," I told Amy as we cleaned up. "I needed this." She squeezed my hand. "Me too." That night we stayed up late talking, really talking, for the first time in months. We talked about work, about the future, about maybe moving in together officially instead of just bouncing between our apartments. It felt good. It felt like we were back on track. Around midnight, we went to bed in the RV's small bedroom at the back. The mattress was lumpy, and the space was cramped, but Amy curled up against me and I fell asleep feeling more hopeful than I had in a long time. I woke up around 3 in the morning because Amy was sitting up in bed, completely still. The RV was dark except for a sliver of moonlight coming through the window above the bed. "What's wrong?" I whispered. "Do you hear that?" she said. I listened. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I did, a faint sound, distant, coming from somewhere outside. It took me a few seconds to place it. It was a baby crying. "Someone must have an infant," I said, though I hadn't seen any babies at the campground. The family near the entrance had kids, but they looked school-aged. "It sounds far away," Amy said, "like it's coming from the woods." I listened again. She was right. The crying wasn't coming from one of the other RVs. It sounded like it was somewhere in the forest behind us. "Maybe it's an animal," I said. "Cats can sound like babies when they fight." Amy didn't respond. She kept staring at the window, her head tilted slightly like she was trying to pinpoint the direction of the sound. The crying went on for maybe a minute, then stopped abruptly. Amy laid back down, but I could tell she wasn't relaxed. Her body was tense next to mine. "It's probably nothing," I said, but she didn't answer. Eventually, I fell back asleep, though it took a while. The next morning, Amy didn't mention the crying at first. We had breakfast outside, instant coffee and granola bars, and she seemed fine, chatting about what trails we should hike. But when I suggested we walk over to the lake, she hesitated. "Can we go toward the back trails instead?" she asked. "The ones that go deeper into the swamp." "I thought you wanted to see the lake." "I do, but maybe later. I'm curious about the area behind the campground." I didn't think much of it at the time. We grabbed our day packs and headed out on one of the trails that Earl had pointed out on the map. The trail was narrow and overgrown in places, with thick vegetation pressing in from both sides. The ground was spongy under our feet, and there were puddles of dark water everywhere. The trees here were different from the ones near the campground, gnarled and twisted, with moss hanging from the branches like curtains. Amy walked ahead of me, moving faster than usual. She kept stopping and looking around like she was searching for something. "You okay?" I asked after the 3rd time she stopped. "Yeah," she said, but she didn't sound convincing. "It's just, I feel like I'm supposed to be here." Does that sound weird? It did sound weird, but I didn't say that. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Like there's something I need to find." "The baby," I said without thinking. She turned to look at me, her expression hard to read. "Maybe." We kept walking. The trail eventually looped back toward the campground, and we didn't find anything unusual. No signs of a baby, no other hikers, nothing. But Amy seemed distracted the whole time. And when we got back to the RV, she went straight inside and laid down, saying she had a headache. That night, the crying started again. It was later this time, maybe 4 a.m. I woke up to find Amy standing at the RV's small kitchen window, looking out into the darkness. "It's back," she said when she noticed I was awake. I got up and stood next to her. The crying was clearer tonight, louder. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded exactly like a human infant, distressed and insistent. The sound was coming from the same direction as before, somewhere in the woods behind our site. "We should tell Earl about it," I said. "Maybe someone's camping illegally out there with a baby." "At 4 a.m, Amy said, "in the middle of a swamp?" She had a point. It didn't make sense, but the alternative, that there was just a baby crying out there alone, made even less sense. "Then what do you think it is?" I asked. "I think it needs help," she said quietly. "Amy, I'm going to look." "Are you serious? It's the middle of the night. I can't just ignore it, Jacob. What if it's real?" "Then we call someone. We don't go wandering into a swamp in the dark." She looked at me, and there was something in her eyes I didn't recognize. Determination, maybe, but also something else. Something harder. "I'm going," she said. I tried to talk her out of it, but she was already putting on her shoes and grabbing a flashlight. I had no choice but to go with her. I wasn't about to let her go alone. We stepped outside into the humid night air. The crying had stopped by the time we reached the edge of the woods, and Amy stood there with her flashlight pointed into the trees, sweeping the beam back and forth. "It was right here," she said. "I know it was." "Maybe it moved," I said, though I didn't believe that. The crying had stopped too suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch. "Or maybe it's waiting for us," Amy said. That sent a chill through me. What's that supposed to mean? She didn't answer. She just started walking into the woods, her flashlight bouncing as she moved. I followed, my own flashlight in hand, trying to keep up. The forest at night was different from the daytime. Darker, obviously, but also more oppressive. The trees seemed closer together, and the sounds we made, our footsteps, our breathing, echoed in a way that felt unnatural. Amy kept walking, not following any trail, just pushing through the underbrush. I called her name a few times, asking her to slow down, but she ignored me. After about 15 minutes, I realized we were completely lost. I had no idea which direction the campground was anymore. "Amy, stop," I said, louder this time. "We need to go back." She finally stopped and turned around. Her face in the flashlight beam looked strange, pale and drawn, with shadows under her eyes that seemed too dark. "Don't you hear it?" she asked. "Hear what?" "The crying. It's close." I listened, but all I heard was the faint rustle of leaves and the distant sound of water. No crying, no baby. "There's nothing," I said. "Let's go back before we get more lost." "It's calling me," she said, and her voice sounded far away, like she was talking in her sleep. "Amy, you're scaring me." She blinked, and for a second it was like she snapped out of whatever trance she'd been in. She looked around, confused, then back at me. "What are we doing out here?" she asked. "You wanted to find the baby." "The baby?" She frowned. I don't remember leaving the RV." That's when I started to really worry. We argued briefly about which way to go, then spent the next hour trying to find our way back. My phone was useless, no signal, and the GPS just showed a blank screen with a spinning loading icon. Amy's phone was the same. Eventually, we stumbled onto a trail that looked familiar, and we followed it back to the campground just as the sky was starting to lighten. We were both exhausted and shaken. Amy went straight to bed without saying anything, and I sat outside the RV with a cup of coffee, watching the sun come up. I kept thinking about the way she'd said, "It's calling me." It wasn't like her to say things like that. Amy was pragmatic, Rational. She didn't believe in anything supernatural or mystical, but the look on her face when she'd been standing in the woods, that wasn't rational. Later that morning, I went to find Earl. He was in the camp office, a small wooden shed near the entrance. I told him about the crying, leaving out the part about Amy's strange behavior. "You heard that too, huh?" he said, leaning back in his chair. "You've heard it before?" "Oh, sure, lots of folks hear it. It's been going on for years." "What is it?" He shrugged. "Nobody knows for sure. Some people say it's a bird, limpkin maybe. They make a sound that can seem like a baby crying. Other people..." He trailed off. "What do other people say?" "They say it's the swamp itself, that this place holds on to things, sounds, voices, whatever. It plays them back sometimes." I stared at him. "That doesn't make sense." "Nothing about the dismal swamp makes sense, son. That's why they call it dismal." He chuckled at his own joke, but there was no humor in his eyes. "My advice? Don't go looking for it. People who go looking for that sound, they don't always come back the same." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just what I said. Stay on the trails during the day. Don't go into the woods at night, and if you hear that crying again, ignore it." I thanked him and left, but his words stuck with me. They don't always come back the same. What did that mean? I thought about asking, but something told me I didn't want to know. When I got back to the RV, Amy was awake and sitting outside at the picnic table. She looked better, more like herself. She apologized for the night before, saying she didn't know what had come over her. She blamed it on being overtired and stressed from work. "Let's just have a normal day," she said. "No hiking, no looking for weird sounds. Let's just relax." I agreed, relieved. We spent the afternoon reading and playing cards, and for a while things felt normal again. But as the sun started to set, I noticed Amy glancing toward the woods more and more often. She'd stop mid-sentence sometimes, her eyes distant, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. "Do you want to leave?" I asked her at one point. "We can pack up and go home." "No," she said quickly. "No, I want to stay. I need to stay." "Why?" She didn't have an answer for that. That night, I barely slept. I kept waking up to check if Amy was still in bed, and every time I did, she was there, but she was always awake, staring at the ceiling. Around 2 a.m, the crying started again, and this time, Amy got up immediately. "I'm going," she said before I could stop her. "Amy, no. I have to, Jacob. I can't explain it, but I have to." I grabbed her arm. "You're not going alone." "Then come with me." We went through the same routine as the night before. Shoes, flashlights, into the woods. But this time, Amy didn't hesitate. She walked with purpose, like she knew exactly where she was going. I followed, my heart pounding. The crying was louder tonight, more insistent, and it seemed to be coming from a specific direction. After maybe 20 minutes, we came to a clearing I hadn't seen before. In the center of the clearing was an old, rotted cabin, barely more than a shack, really, with most of the roof caved in and the walls leaning at dangerous angles. The crying was coming from inside. Amy walked toward it without hesitation, and I had to run to catch up with her. "Wait," I said, grabbing her arm. "We don't know what's in there." "The baby," she said simply. "Amy, think about this. Why would there be a baby in an abandoned cabin in the middle of the swamp?" She looked at me, and in the flashlight beam her eyes looked wrong. The pupils were too dilated, like she was on something. "Because it needs me," she said. She pulled away from me and walked into the cabin. I stood there for a second, frozen, then followed her inside. The interior of the cabin was worse than the outside. The floor was covered in leaves and debris, and there were holes in the floorboards big enough to fall through. The smell was overwhelming, rot and mildew and something else, something sweet and sickly that made my stomach turn. The crying had stopped the moment we stepped inside, and the silence was deafening. "Where is it?" Amy said, her voice echoing slightly in the small space. She was sweeping her flashlight around, searching. "There's nothing here," I said. "Let's go." It was here. I heard it. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe it ran when we came in. It wasn't an animal, Jacob. She said my name with such certainty that it chilled me. It was a baby. It was crying for help. "There's no baby," I said firmly. "We're leaving. Now." For a moment I thought she was going to argue, but then she nodded. We left the cabin and made our way back to the campground. This time, the walk seemed shorter, and we found the trail easily. Too easily, actually. It was like the forest wanted us to leave. The next day, Amy barely spoke. She sat outside the RV all morning, staring into the woods. I tried to talk to her, to suggest we pack up and leave, but she wouldn't engage. It was like she was somewhere else entirely. That afternoon, the retired couple from the other end of the campground stopped by. They introduced themselves as Tom and Linda. They said they'd noticed we seemed upset and wanted to check if everything was okay. "Have you heard it?" Linda asked after we'd chatted for a few minutes. "The crying?" I exchanged a glance with Amy, who was sitting on the picnic table bench, still staring into the woods. "Yeah," I said. "We've heard it." Tom nodded gravely. "We heard it our first night here, too. Scared Linda half to death." "Do you know what it is?" I asked. "Not for certain," Tom said. "But Earl told us a story. Said back in the 1800s there was a settlement deeper in the swamp. Bunch of folks trying to make a go of it, farming and logging and such. One winter, there was a fever outbreak. Killed most of the children in the settlement. The parents buried them in the swamp, but they say the spirits never left. They say you can still hear them crying sometimes, looking for their mothers." "That's just a story," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "Maybe," Tom said, "but stories usually start from something real." After they left, I tried to talk to Amy about what Tom had said, but she dismissed it. "It's not a ghost," she said. "It's a real baby. I know it is." "How can you know that?" "Because I can feel it, Jacob. I can feel it calling to me." That's when I realized how bad things had gotten. Amy wasn't just obsessed with the sound. She was convinced it was real, that there was an actual infant out there needing help, and nothing I said could convince her otherwise. That night I didn't sleep at all. I stayed awake, watching Amy, making sure she didn't try to leave. Around 3 in the morning, the crying started again and Amy's eyes opened immediately. She didn't move, didn't sit up, just laid there listening. "It's getting weaker," she whispered. "It's dying. Amy, please. I have to help it." She tried to get up, and I held her down. We struggled briefly, and for a terrifying moment, Amy fought me with a strength I didn't know she had. Then suddenly, she went limp and started crying. "I just want to help," she sobbed. "Why won't you let me help?" I held her while she cried, feeling completely helpless. When the sun came up, I made a decision. We were leaving. I didn't care what Amy said. I packed up our stuff while she sat outside, and by noon we were ready to go. "Get in the RV," I told her. "No," she said. "I'm not leaving." "Amy, we're going home. This place isn't good for you." "I can't leave it," she said, and she was crying again. "It needs me. I'm the only one who can hear it. I'm the only one who can save it." I tried to reason with her, tried to physically guide her into the RV, but she wouldn't budge. Eventually, I gave up. I told her I was going to the camp office to talk to Earl, to see if he could help. She nodded absently, and I left. Earl wasn't in the office when I got there. I waited for about 15 minutes, pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to do. Finally, I decided to go back to the RV and just drag Amy inside if I had to. We'd deal with everything else later. But when I got back to our site, Amy was gone. I called her name, checked inside the RV, looked around the clearing. Her phone was still on the picnic table, along with her shoes. She was gone, barefoot, into the swamp. I ran to the woods, shouting her name. I didn't have my flashlight this time. It was broad daylight, but the forest was still dark under the canopy of trees. I ran down the trail we'd taken before, heading toward the clearing with the cabin. My lungs burned and my legs ached, but I didn't stop. When I reached the clearing, the cabin was there, looking even more decrepit in the daylight. I ran inside, calling Amy's name, but the cabin was empty. Completely empty. No sign that anyone had been there. I spent the next hour searching the area around the cabin, shouting until my voice was hoarse. There was no response, no sign of Amy. It was like she'd vanished. I went back to the campground and found Earl. I told him Amy was missing, and he called the local sheriff. By evening, there were search teams in the woods, sheriff's deputies, volunteers, even some people with dogs. They searched all night and into the next day. They found nothing. No footprints, no torn clothing, nothing. It was like Amy had walked into the swamp and ceased to exist. The police questioned me extensively. They wanted to know if we'd been fighting, if there was any reason she might have run off. I told them about the crying, about Amy's obsession with finding the source, but I could see in their eyes that they didn't believe me. They thought I'd done something to her. On the third day of searching, they found Amy. She was sitting at our picnic table when I got back to the campsite with one of the deputies, just sitting there, perfectly calm, like nothing had happened. She was filthy, covered in mud and leaves, and her feet were cut and bleeding from walking barefoot, but otherwise she seemed fine. "Amy." I ran to her and grabbed her shoulders. "Where were you? What happened?" She looked at me, but there was something off about her expression. Her smile was too wide, too fixed. "I found it," she said. "Found what?" "The baby." The deputy stepped forward. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" Amy turned to look at him, and that smile never wavered. "I'm perfect. Everything's perfect now." They took her to the hospital for evaluation. The doctor said she was dehydrated and had some minor cuts and bruises, but otherwise she was physically fine. Mentally, though, they couldn't find anything wrong, but she wasn't right. She kept talking about the baby, saying she'd saved it, that it was safe now. I tried to get her to explain where she'd been for 3 days, but her answers didn't make sense. She'd say things like, "I was with the baby," or "I was where I needed to be." When I pressed her for details, she'd just smile that too wide smile and change the subject. The police eventually let us go home. There was no evidence of any crime, and Amy insisted she'd just gotten lost and found her way back. I think they were just relieved to close the case. Things got worse after we got back to Richmond. Amy quit her job at the hospital without telling me. I found out when her supervisor called asking where she was. Amy said she didn't need to work anymore, that she had something more important to do. "What's more important?" I asked. "Taking care of the baby," she said. "What baby, Amy?" "There is no baby." She just smiled. She started disappearing for hours at a time. I'd come home from work and find her gone, and she'd return late at night with no explanation of where she'd been. She stopped eating much, stopped sleeping. She'd just sit in our apartment staring at nothing, sometimes humming lullabies under her breath. I tried to get her help. I made appointments with therapists, but she refused to go. Her friends reached out, worried about her, but she wouldn't talk to them. It was like the Amy I knew was gone, replaced by something wearing her face. The worst part was the sound. About a week after we got back, I started hearing it too. The crying. Faint at first, like it was coming from very far away, but getting louder each night. I'd wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and hear it, that same desperate infant wail, and I'd find Amy standing at the window, smiling, listening. "She's calling," Amy would say. "She needs me." "Who's calling?" I'd ask, even though I knew she wouldn't give me a straight answer. "The baby." Last week, I woke up and Amy was gone. Her car was still in the parking lot, her phone was on the nightstand, but she was gone. I called the police, filed a missing persons report. They said they'd look into it, but I could tell they thought she'd just left me. Maybe she did. Maybe the Amy I loved is gone, and what came back from the dismal swamp was something else, something that belonged there. I still hear the crying sometimes. It's quieter now, farther away, but it's there. And sometimes, late at night, I think about going back to the swamp. I think about finding that cabin again, about seeing what Amy saw, about understanding what happened to her. But Earl's words keep echoing in my head. They don't always come back the same. Amy came back, but she wasn't the same. And I'm terrified that if I go looking for answers, I won't be the same either. I'm writing this down because I need people to know what happened. If you're planning to visit the Great Dismal Swamp and if you hear a baby crying in the woods at night, don't go looking for it. Don't try to help. Just pack up and leave. Because whatever's out there in that swamp, it doesn't want to be found. It wants to find you. And when it does, you won't come back the same. It's been 3 months since I wrote that. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to process everything that happened. The police never found Amy. They say the case is still open, but I know they've stopped actively searching. Her family blames me. They think I drove her away somehow. Maybe I did. I moved out of our apartment. Too many memories, too many nights waking up to that crying sound that may or may not have been real. I'm staying with a friend now, trying to rebuild my life, trying to figure out who I am without Amy. But here's the thing I can't tell anyone. The thing that keeps me up at night. Last week I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, there was breathing on the other end, and then faintly the sound of a baby crying. And underneath it, barely audible, was Amy's voice. She was humming a lullaby. I hung up immediately and blocked the number. But it doesn't matter. Because now I know she's out there somewhere. And whatever she found in that swamp, she's still with it. Still taking care of it. And I can't shake the feeling that one day they're both going to come back for me. I hear the crying sometimes, even now. Not just at night anymore, but during the day too. At work, in the grocery store, on the street. No one else seems to hear it, and I'm starting to wonder if it's just in my head. Or if maybe I'm becoming like Amy. If whatever claimed her is starting to claim me too. My therapist says it's trauma, that my brain is trying to process the loss by holding on to the last thing I associate with Amy. That sound we heard in the swamp. She says it will fade with time, but I don't think it will. Because yesterday I found something in my car. A small, muddy handprint on the inside of my windshield. Child-sized, too small to be from an adult. And next to it, written in the condensation, were 2 words. Come back. I'm writing this as an update and maybe as a warning. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if Amy is really out there or if I'm losing my mind. But I can feel it pulling at me. That same pull Amy must have felt. Like there's a thread attached to my chest, tugging me back toward the dismal swamp. Part of me wants to resist. To stay here, to keep seeing my therapist, to try to move on with my life. But another part of me, a growing part, wants to go back. Wants to find Amy. Wants to understand. And I think that part is going to win. If you're reading this and I disappear, you'll know where I went. You'll know I went looking for Amy in the Great Dismal Swamp. And if you ever hear news about me, about them finding me or not finding me, remember this. Whatever comes back probably won't really be me. Just like what came back wasn't really Amy. The crying is louder now. I can hear it as I write this, echoing through my apartment even though all the windows are closed. It sounds closer than ever. And for the first time, I don't think it sounds like a baby crying. I think it sounds like Amy. She's calling me home. And God help me, I think I'm going to answer. My name is Emily Parker. We camped by the Rogue River in southern Oregon and woke up to see it flowing the opposite way. I need to explain this carefully because I know how it sounds. I've gone over it in my head maybe 1,000 times since we got back, trying to find some rational explanation, some detail I missed that would make sense of everything. But there isn't one. Or if there is, it's worse than admitting I don't understand what happened. We left Portland on a Thursday morning in early September. The RV park was called Riverview Pines, about 40 minutes outside of Grants Pass. My boyfriend Marcus found it online, one of those places that advertises rustic charm and unspoiled nature, which usually means the bathrooms are questionable and there's no cell service. We'd been planning this trip for months, just 4 days to decompress before Marcus started his new job at the architecture firm. The drive down was normal. We stopped for gas in Salem, Got Subway sandwiches that we ate in the parking lot. Marcus drove the whole way because I get nervous handling the RV on mountain roads. We listened to a podcast about unsolved mysteries. I remember that specifically because later, when things started happening, I wondered if we'd somehow jinxed ourselves by listening to stories about people disappearing. We arrived around 4 in the afternoon. The RV park was smaller than the website made it look, maybe 20 sites total, half of them occupied. The office was a small wooden building with a hand-painted sign. A woman in her 60s checked us in. Her name tag said Deb. She had the kind of face that looked like it smiled a lot, but she wasn't smiling then. "You're in Site 17, she said, handing Marcus a map. "Down by the river bend. Pretty spot." "Is it usually this quiet?" I asked. "September's our slow season. Most folks come in summer." She glanced at the window toward the river. "Water's high this year. Had a lot of rain up in the Cascades." Marcus asked about hiking trails, and she gave us a photocopied sheet with trail maps. The paper was worn, like it had been copied and recopied many times. As we were leaving, Deb called out, "Oh, and if you need anything after 8, I'm not in the office. Use the phone outside, extension 3. Site 17 was at the far end of the campground, tucked into a curve where the river made a sharp bend. 2 other RVs were visible through the trees, one about 50 yards upstream, another across the small access road. Our site had a picnic table, a fire ring, and a view of the water through the Douglas firs. The river was loud. That's the first thing I noticed. Not roaring, but a constant rush that filled all the space where silence would normally be. Marcus said it was soothing. I thought it was the kind of sound that would keep me awake. We spent the rest of the afternoon setting up. Marcus grilled chicken on the portable grill while I arranged our stuff inside the RV. Everything felt normal. Good, even. We ate dinner at the picnic table, drank wine from plastic cups, watched the light fade through the trees. The river caught the last of the sun, turning copper and then gray. Around 9, we walked down to the riverbank. The water was maybe 30 feet wide at that point, moving fast over rocks. A wooden post marked something, maybe the high water line or a property boundary. Marcus skipped stones. I took a photo of him doing it, though it came out too dark to see much. "Which way is it flowing?" Marcus asked. I pointed left, downstream. "That way, toward the ocean." "Just checking if you know your geography." "I know north from south, Marcus." We went back to the RV and watched a movie on Marcus's laptop. The Wi-Fi barely worked, so we downloaded it before we left. Some action thing with a lot of explosions. I fell asleep before it ended. I woke up around 3 in the morning. The river sounded different. Louder, maybe. Or just different in a way I couldn't articulate. Marcus was asleep next to me, breathing evenly. I got up to use the bathroom, trying not to wake him. Through the small RV window, I could see moonlight on the water. Everything looked normal. I went back to bed. In the morning, Marcus made coffee while I checked my phone. No signal, as expected. We'd told our friends we'd be off-grid for a few days. It felt liberating at the time. "Want to do that trail to Cooper Falls?" Marcus asked. "Deb said it's about 6 miles round trip." "Sure. Let me just brush my teeth and we can go." That's when Marcus went outside and noticed. "Em," he called. His voice had a strange flatness to it. "Come look at this." I went out in my pajama shorts and camp sandals. Marcus was standing at the river's edge, staring at the water. "What?" He pointed. "Look at the current." I looked. The water was flowing right, upstream, back the way it had come. "That's not," I started, then stopped. "That's not possible." "I know." We stood there for a while, just watching. The water moved steadily, definitively, in the wrong direction. Leaves and small branches floated past, heading upstream. The sound was the same, that constant rushing, but now it felt wrong, like hearing a recording played backward. "There has to be an explanation," I said. "Maybe we're confused about which direction is which." Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the compass app. He pointed. "North is that way. The The river flows south to north here, then west toward the coast. It should be going that direction. He pointed left. But it's going that way. He pointed right. Could it be the tide? We're 40 miles inland, Em, and rivers don't reverse direction because of tides. Not like this. I walked along the bank looking for something that would make sense of what I was seeing. The wooden post I'd noticed last night was still there. In the daylight, I could see it had marks on it. Carved lines at different heights, probably flood markers. The water was about 6 inches below the highest mark. Maybe there's a dam upstream that opened, I suggested, or closed. I don't know how dams work. Why would that make the river flow backward? He had a point. We went back to the RV and got dressed. Marcus wanted to ask Deb about it. I wanted to pack up and leave, but I didn't say that. It felt ridiculous to leave a campground because a river was flowing the wrong direction. The walk to the office took about 10 minutes. The other campers were up. I could smell bacon frying somewhere. A man was unhitching a boat trailer from his truck. Everything looked aggressively normal. Deb wasn't in the office. A different woman was there, younger, maybe 30s. Her name tag said Sarah. "Can I help you?" she asked. Marcus explained about the river. Sarah listened with a polite expression that didn't change. "The Rogue does some funny things depending on the season," she said. "Water levels, current speeds, it can look different day to day." "It's not flowing different," Marcus said. "It's flowing backward." Sarah's polite expression remained. "The river flows west to the Pacific. It's been doing that for a few million years." "Could you just come look?" I asked. "Please." She glanced at the clock on the wall. "I'm the only one here right now, but Deb should be in around noon. She knows the river better than anyone." We thanked her and left. Walking back, Marcus was quiet. "You think we're crazy," I said. "I think we saw what we saw. But she basically told us we're wrong. She didn't come look." Back at our site, the river was still flowing the wrong direction. We stood there and watched it for a while longer. A beer can floated past, moving upstream. "Let's do the hike," Marcus said finally. "Clear our heads. Maybe when we get back, it'll be normal again." I agreed, though I didn't believe it would help. We packed water bottles, snacks, the trail map Deb had given us. The trailhead was at the far end of the campground, marked with a wooden sign that said, "Cooper Falls Trail, 32 Mitorizar." The hike started easy, following the river for about a mile before climbing up into the forest. The trees were dense, Douglas fir, cedar, some oak, ferns everywhere. It was pretty in an overwhelming way. Every few minutes, Marcus would stop and take a photo with his phone. After about an hour, we reached the falls. Cooper Falls wasn't spectacular. Maybe 30 feet high, dropping into a pool surrounded by moss-covered rocks. A few other hikers were there, a family with 2 kids. The kids were throwing sticks into the pool, watching them swirl. Marcus and I sat on a log and shared a Cliff Bar. The family left after a few minutes, and we were alone. "You know what's weird?" Marcus said. "Besides the river flowing backward? We haven't seen any animals, no birds, no squirrels, nothing." He was right. The forest had been quiet the entire hike. Not silent. There was wind in the trees, the sound of water, but no animal sounds, no bird song. "It's probably the time of day," and I said, "or the season. Maybe." We started back. The trail down was steeper than I remembered, and at one point I slipped and grabbed Marcus's arm. He steadied me, and we kept going. About halfway back to the campground, we passed another hiker coming up. A man, maybe 50, wearing expensive-looking gear. He nodded as we passed. "Trail's nice today," he said. "Yeah," Marcus replied. "Have you been to the falls before?" "Few times. Always worth it." We continued past him. Something about the encounter felt off, but I couldn't place what. It wasn't until we were almost back at the trailhead that Marcus stopped. "Did that guy seem weird to you?" "A little. Why?" "His clothes were completely dry." I thought about it. "So?" "We just came from the falls. The trail was muddy in places. We're both covered in dirt and our shoes are soaked from the stream crossing. But his gear looked brand new. Not a speck of mud. Maybe he's just really careful. Marcus didn't respond. We got back to the RV around 2 in the afternoon. The river was still flowing backward. I was starting to feel a headache building behind my eyes. The constant sound of the water, the wrongness of it, it was getting to me. I took some Advil and lay down while Marcus went to find Deb. He came back 20 minutes later. Deb wasn't there. Sarah said she called in sick. Did you tell her about the river? I tried. She said sometimes after heavy rain the current patterns can look confusing. But I stood there and watched. A leaf floated past. It was going upstream. There's no confusion about it. We spent the rest of the afternoon trying to distract ourselves. Marcus read a book. I attempted to do a crossword puzzle but couldn't concentrate. Around 5, we decided to make dinner. Marcus grilled burgers while I made a salad. We ate at the picnic table, not talking much. The couple from the RV upstream walked past on their way to the bathrooms. They waved. We waved back. They looked normal. 40s, matching fleece jackets, a golden retriever on a leash. Should we ask them? I said quietly. About the river? And say what? Excuse me. Have you noticed the laws of physics aren't working today? When you put it that way. After dinner, we tried to light a fire in the fire ring. We'd bought a bundle of wood from the camp store the day before. The wood was dry, the kindling caught easily, but the fire wouldn't stay lit. It would flare up, burn for a minute or two, then die down to embers. Marcus tried 3 times before giving up. Forget it, he said. We don't need a fire. But it bothered me. That, combined with the river and the quiet forest and the hiker with the clean clothes, everything felt slightly wrong, like a picture hung crooked that you can't stop noticing. We went inside the RV and played cards for a while. Rummy. Marcus won every hand, which never happens. I'm usually better at cards than he is. You're letting me win, he said. I'm not. I just can't focus. Around 9:30, we heard voices outside, not loud but distinct, a conversation happening somewhere nearby. Marcus opened the door and looked out. Can't see anyone, he said. Must be from one of the other sites. But the voices continued. They didn't get louder or quieter, didn't move, just a steady murmur of conversation that I couldn't quite make out. After a while, I realized I couldn't tell if it was 2 people talking or more, or if they were speaking English. Marcus, I said, listen to that. He tilted his head, listening. It's just people talking. But what are they saying? He was quiet for a moment. I can't tell. They're too far away. Exactly. We can hear them clearly enough to know they're talking, but not clearly enough to understand words. Doesn't that seem strange? People talk at night, Em. That's normal. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was looking for problems now, seeing patterns in random noise. I went to bed, leaving Marcus on the couch with his book. I dreamed about the river. In the dream, I was standing on the bank, watching the water flow upstream. The current was getting faster, moving at impossible speeds. Things floated past. Branches, leaves, then larger objects. A bicycle, a mailbox, a dog, swimming frantically against the current but making no progress. The dog's eyes met mine, and it was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand. I woke to Marcus shaking my shoulder. Em, wake up. I sat up, disoriented. The clock on the wall said 11:47. I'd only been asleep for 2 hours, but it felt like longer. What's wrong? Come outside, you have to see this. I followed him out in my pajamas, barefoot on the cold ground. The moon was full, bright enough to cast shadows. Marcus led me to the river. The water was flowing in both directions. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The center of the river moved upstream, strong and fast. But along the banks, the water flowed downstream, creating 2 opposing currents. Where they met, the water churned and folded in on itself, creating strange eddies and whirlpools. That's not possible, I said. I know. We watched for several minutes. The water never changed, never resolved into a single direction. It just kept flowing both ways at once. "We need to leave," and I said. "At midnight? We can't drive the RV at night on these roads. We barely made it up here in daylight. Then first thing in the morning." "Okay." First thing in the morning. We went back inside. I knew I wouldn't sleep, but I lay in bed anyway, listening to the river. The sound had changed again. Or maybe I was just hearing it differently now that I knew what was happening. It sounded aggressive, violent, like the water was angry. Marcus came to bed around 1. I felt him lie down carefully, trying not to disturb me. I almost told him I was awake, but I didn't. Sometime later, I'm not sure how much later, I heard a scratching sound. Soft, repetitive, like fingernails on wood. I opened my eyes. The moonlight through the window showed Marcus's back, his shoulders rising and falling with his breathing. The scratching continued. It was coming from outside, near the door. I got up slowly, trying not to wake Marcus. In the main area of the RV, everything looked normal. The scratching was louder here, definitely at the door. I looked through the small window. Nothing. No one. The scratching stopped. I stood there for a few minutes, waiting. When it didn't start again, I went back to bed. In the morning, or what I thought was morning, I woke to find Marcus already up. He was sitting at the small table, staring at his phone. "What time is it?" I asked. He looked at me. His expression was strange. "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" He held up his phone. The screen showed 7:42 a.m. "But the sun's wrong. It's too high. It feels like afternoon." I checked my own phone. Also 7:42. I looked out the window. Marcus was right. The angle of the light, the position of the sun through the trees. It looked like midday, not early morning. "Our phones are wrong," I said. "The batteries must have died or something." "They're both at full charge." I sat down across from him. "Okay, so we don't know what time it is. We'll ask someone at the office." I'm scared." I'd never heard him say that before. Marcus didn't get scared. He was the one who stayed calm during emergencies, who always had a plan. "Me too," I said. We got dressed quickly, not bothering with breakfast. Outside, the river was flowing upstream again, just upstream, not in both directions. That felt almost normal by comparison. The walk to the office was longer than I remembered. We passed the other RVs, but no one was outside. No sounds of activity, no smoke from breakfast fires. The campground felt abandoned. The office door was locked. I tried the handle twice to be sure. "There's a phone," Marcus said, pointing to a payphone-style box mounted on the wall. Deb said to use extension 3 after hours. He picked up the receiver, pressed 3. I could hear it ringing through the handset. It rang for a long time. No one answered. "Try the operator," I suggested. 0. Marcus pressed 0, more ringing, then a click and a voice. "Office." "Hi," Marcus said. "We're campers at Site 17. We were wondering what time it is." Silence on the other end. Then, "What time is it?" "Yes. Our phones seem to be wrong and—" The voice interrupted. "What time is it where you are?" Marcus looked at me. I shook my head. Something was wrong with this conversation. "We're at Site 17, he repeated. "In the RV park. We just wanted to know—" "Site 17. The voice was flat, neither male nor female. "By the river." "Yes. The river that flows backward." Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. "You know about that. Everyone knows, that's why they don't camp there anymore." "What do you mean?" The line went dead. Marcus hung up slowly. We stood there looking at each other. "What the fuck?" I said. "I don't know. We're leaving, right now. I don't care about the time or the roads or anything. We're getting in the RV and we're going." We walked back quickly, not quite running. The campground still seemed empty. When we got to Site 17, the couple with the golden retriever were outside their RV packing up. "Excuse me," I called to them. They looked over. The woman smiled. "Good morning. Do you know what time it is?" She checked her watch. "Just after 1. 1 in the afternoon?" "Yes." "But—" I stopped. "Never mind. Have you noticed anything strange about the river?" The man and woman exchanged a glance. "Strange how?" the man asked. "The direction it's flowing." "It flows west," the woman said. "Toward the ocean." "Right, but which way is west from here?" The man pointed. "That way." He was pointing in the direction the river was flowing, which was the opposite direction from yesterday. Either the river had reversed back to normal, or the entire landscape had rotated. "Okay," I said faintly. "Thank you." We went back to our site. I started unhooking the RV's connections while Marcus collapsed the awning and secured the exterior storage. "Did you see their license plate?" Marcus asked quietly. "No. Why?" "Oregon plates, but the RV had a rental company sticker. From Arizona. So they rented an RV in Arizona, but it has Oregon plates. Or the plates changed. I didn't want to think about what that meant. We finished packing up. The whole process took maybe 45 minutes. By the time we were ready to leave, the couple upstream had driven off. We were alone. Marcus started the engine. It turned over on the first try, which felt like a small miracle. We pulled out of the site slowly, following the narrow road toward the exit. The road split after about 100 yards. One direction led back toward the office and the main entrance. The other direction, I didn't remember there being another direction yesterday, but there it was, a second road leading deeper into the campground. "Did we come in that way?" Marcus asked. "I don't think so." He turned toward the office. The road curved through the trees, passing several empty campsites. After a few minutes, we reached another split. Both roads looked identical. "Marcus, which way?" "I don't know." He took the left fork. After another minute, we came to another split, then another. "This is wrong," I said. "The campground isn't this big. We should have hit the office by now." Marcus stopped the RV. "I'm going to turn around." He put it in reverse, backed up carefully. At the last split, he took the other direction. We drove for several minutes. The road kept splitting, branching, multiplying. None of it looked familiar. "We're lost," Marcus said. "We're lost in a campground." I pulled out the map Deb had given us. It showed maybe 20 sites in a simple loop. No maze of roads, no branches. I turned it over. The back was blank. "Just pick a direction and keep going," I said. "Eventually we'll hit the entrance, or a fence, or something." Marcus nodded and drove on. The road curved and split and curved again. We passed campsites, all empty. Some looked abandoned, tables overturned, fire rings full of old ash, trash scattered around. Others looked pristine, like they were waiting for campers who would never arrive. After what felt like an hour, but might have been 20 minutes or 3 hours, time had become unreliable. We came to a site that made Marcus hit the brakes. Site 17. Our site. The picnic table where we'd eaten dinner. The fire ring where the fire wouldn't stay lit. The view of the river through the trees. "No," I said. "No, we left. We packed up and left." Marcus put the RV in park and got out. I followed. The site looked exactly as we'd found it 2 days ago. The fire ring was clean. The picnic table was centered properly. There was no sign we'd ever been there. "I don't understand," Marcus said. His voice was shaking. "I don't understand what's happening." I walked to the river. The water was flowing upstream. Or downstream. I couldn't tell anymore. I couldn't remember which direction it was supposed to flow, which direction was supposed to be normal. "Marcus," I said, "do you remember arriving here? Do you remember what day we got here?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Thursday," he said finally. "Thursday afternoon." "And today is?" "Saturday. It has to be Saturday. But we don't know what time it is. We don't know which direction is which. We don't know how to leave. We'll figure it out. Let's just—" He stopped. "Did you hear that?" I listened. Voices. The same murmuring conversation from last night. coming from somewhere in the trees. "Hello?" Marcus called out. "Is someone there?" The voices stopped. Then, after a moment, they started again. Closer now. "Let's get back in the RV," I said. We climbed back inside. Marcus locked the door. We sat at the small table, listening to the voices outside. They seemed to circle the RV, never quite close enough to understand, never far enough to ignore. "What do we do?" I asked. "We wait. When it gets dark, we'll try again. We'll drive until we're out of here, even if it takes all night." But when would it get dark? The sun hadn't moved since morning, or 1 in the afternoon, or whatever time it actually was. It hung at the same angle, casting the same shadows, unchanging. We waited. I don't know how long. Marcus tried to read. I tried to sleep. Neither of us succeeded. The voices outside continued, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, always present. At some point, Marcus said, "I'm going to the bathroom," and went to the small RV bathroom. He was in there for a long time. When he came out, he looked pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The water in the toilet. It's flowing the wrong direction. When I flushed it," he shook his head. "It went up instead of down." I went to check. He was right. The water in the bowl was swirling clockwise, which wasn't how toilets worked. Or maybe it was how they worked in the southern hemisphere, but we weren't in the southern hemisphere. Were we? Marcus said from the main area. "Look at this." I came out. He was holding his phone, showing me the GPS app. The blue dot that showed our location was moving, not staying still like it should when you're parked. It was drifting in a slow circle, like we were on a carousel. "We're moving," he said. "We can't be. The engine's off." I know. I looked out the window. The trees, the river, the picnic table, everything was stationary. We weren't moving, but according to the GPS, we were. "Marcus, I want to go home." "I know. Me too." He tried starting the engine again. It turned over, caught, then died. He tried 3 more times. On the 4th try, it started and stayed running. "Okay," he said. "Here we go." He put the RV in drive and pressed the gas. The engine revved, but we didn't move. He pressed harder. The engine screamed, but the RV stayed motionless, as if we were stuck in mud or snow. But when I looked out the window, the tires were on solid ground, turning freely. Marcus put it in park and turned off the engine. "I don't think we can leave. There has to be a way. Maybe we're not supposed to leave. Maybe that's the point." "What point?" "This isn't a story, Marcus. There's no point. It's just wrong. Everything is wrong." He didn't argue. We sat in silence. The voices outside had stopped. Now there was just the river, that constant rushing sound that I'd once thought was soothing. "I need to walk," Marcus said suddenly. "I can't just sit here." "Don't go outside. I'm going crazy in here, Em. I just need to move, clear my head. Then I'm coming with you." "No, stay here, lock the door. I'll just walk to the river and back, 5 minutes. I didn't want him to go, but I also understood the feeling. The RV was small. The walls were pressing in, and sitting still felt like suffocating. 5 minutes, I said. "If you're not back, I'm coming after you." "Deal." He went outside, closing the door behind him. I locked it and watched through the window. He walked to the river's edge, stood there looking at the water. After a moment, he knelt down like he was examining something on the ground. I checked my phone. 1:23 p.m. Same as before. Time had stopped, or we had, or something. I looked back out the window. Marcus was still at the river, but now he was standing in the water, not at the edge, in it, up to his knees. What was he doing? I unlocked the door and stepped outside. "Marcus?" He didn't turn around. He was staring downstream, or upstream. I couldn't remember anymore. Completely still. "Marcus, what are you doing?" He turned then, and my breath caught. His expression was wrong. Not scared, not confused. Blank, like all the emotion had been erased from his face. "Come look," he said. His voice sounded flat, mechanical. Come see. Come see what? The water. You have to see the water. I took a step toward him, then stopped. Something about this felt like a trap. Some instinct was screaming at me not to get closer. Marcus, come out of the river. It's fine. The water's fine. Come look. Please come back to the RV. He tilted his head like he was considering it. Then he smiled. It wasn't Marcus's smile. It was something wearing Marcus's face and trying to remember how humans smiled. Okay, he said. I'll come back. He walked out of the water, his clothes dripping. But even though he'd been standing in the river, his pants weren't wet below the knee. They were completely dry. I backed toward the RV. Stay there. What's wrong? You're not Marcus. Of course I am. He took a step closer. What are you talking about? Your clothes are dry. He looked down, seemed to notice for the first time. Oh, that's strange. What happened to you? Nothing happened. I just went to look at the river. Like I said I would. Another step. Why are you backing away? Because something's wrong with you. I'm fine, I'm completely fine. His smile widened. Come here, let me show you I'm fine. I turned and ran for the RV. Behind me, I heard Marcus, or the thing that looked like Marcus, start running too. I reached the door, yanked it open, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut. My hands shook as I tried to turn the lock. Something hit the door from outside, hard. Let me in. Marcus's voice, but wrong, too calm, too even. This isn't funny. Open the door. I moved away from the door, backing into the bedroom area. My phone was on the table. I grabbed it, not sure what I was going to do with it. Call 911, tell them what? That my boyfriend went to look at a river and came back wrong. The door handle rattled. Please. I'm sorry if I scared you. I'm fine now. I promise I'm fine. Go away. I can't go away. This is my RV too. This is our trip. We came here together, remember? I did remember. Thursday afternoon, Subway sandwiches, a podcast about disappearances. It felt like a lifetime ago. The rattling stopped. I heard footsteps moving around the RV, circling it. Then they stopped at the window near the bed. I saw Marcus's face appear, pressed against the glass. I can see you, he said. His voice was muffled but clear. You can't hide from me. We're together. That's the whole point of this. What point? What are you talking about? The river chose us, don't you understand? It flowed backward just for us. It showed us which direction to go. All we have to do is follow. The river is just water, Marcus. It doesn't choose anything. That's not true anymore. He smiled again, that terrible, not right smile. Nothing is true anymore. Didn't you notice? Time doesn't work. Direction doesn't work. The road goes in circles. We're inside now, Em. We crossed over. Crossed over where? To where the river flows backward, to where everything runs in reverse, where endings come before beginnings. I wanted to tell him he was crazy, that he was talking nonsense. But none of this was following any kind of logic. Why couldn't he be right? Why couldn't there be a place where rivers flowed backward and time stopped and couples got trapped forever in endless campgrounds? I don't want to be here, I said. I know, but we don't get to choose. His face disappeared from the window. I'll give you some time to think, but eventually you'll have to come out. You'll get hungry or thirsty, or you'll just get tired of being alone. And when you do, I'll be here. I'll always be here. The footsteps moved away. I waited, listening. The river rushed, nothing else. I stayed in the RV as the unchanging afternoon continued. The sun didn't move. My phone stayed at 1:23. I found some granola bars in the cabinet and ate them without tasting anything. I drank water from the tap, which came out tasting faintly of metal and something else I couldn't identify. Every so often I'd look out the window. Sometimes Marcus was there, standing at the edge of the trees watching the RV. Other times he wasn't. Once, I saw him in the river again, standing in the current that flowed both ways or no way or every way at once. Night never fell, or maybe it did and I couldn't tell the difference anymore. My sense of time had completely fallen apart. I might have been in the RV for hours or days. I couldn't tell. At some point I heard a knocking at the door. Soft, polite. "M?" Marcus's voice. "I brought you something. You must be getting hungry." I went to the window by the door and looked out. Marcus was holding a plate with what looked like a sandwich on it. His smile looked more natural now, more like his real smile. But his eyes were still wrong, too bright, too focused. "I'm not hungry. You have to eat eventually. I'll take my chances." "M, please, can we just talk? I won't try to come in, I promise. I just want to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I said, "Fine. Talk." He set the plate down on the picnic table and stepped back, giving me space. "I know you're scared, I get it. I was scared too at first, but, it's not so bad once you accept it." "Accept what?" "That we're not leaving. That this is where we are now." "That's insane." "Is it? We've been trying to leave for..." He paused. "How long have we been trying to leave, Em?" I didn't answer. "You don't know, do you? Because time doesn't mean anything here. We could have been trying for 5 minutes or 5 years, there's no way to tell. Even if that's true, I'm not giving up. I'm not asking you to give up. I'm asking you to let go. There's a difference." "No, there isn't." He sighed. "You always were stubborn. That's one of the things I love about you. Don't say you love me. Whatever you are, you're not Marcus. I'm exactly Marcus, I'm just more now. I've seen what's under the surface, what flows beneath the current. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And Em," he leaned closer to the door, "you're going to see it eventually. Everyone who stays here does. I won't stay here. You will, because there's nowhere else to go. The roads only lead back here. The time only stays still here. The river only flows both ways here. We're at the center, Em. The eye of the storm. The point where everything meets." I moved away from the window. His voice followed me. "I'll be outside if you need me. I'm not going anywhere. I spent more time in the RV, how much I don't know. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the river flowing in impossible directions, felt the wrongness of it seeping into my mind. The strangest part was that I was getting used to it. The constant sound of the water, the unchanging light, even the knowledge that Marcus was outside waiting. It was all starting to feel normal. Like this had always been my life, and everything before was the dream. That's when I knew I had to do something. I searched the RV for anything that could help. The keys were still in the ignition, but I'd seen what happened when we tried to drive. In the storage compartments, I found camping gear, a first aid kit, emergency flares. The flares gave me an idea. If we couldn't drive out, maybe someone could see us. Maybe if I made enough noise, enough light, something would change. Someone would notice. I grabbed the flares and went to the door. I'd have to go outside, but maybe if I was fast, I could light them before Marcus stopped me. I unlocked the door and threw it open. Marcus was sitting at the picnic table, exactly where I'd expected him to be. He looked up as I came out. "Em, you're out." I didn't answer. I ran to the fire ring, opened the first flare and struck it. It burst into red light, burning and smoking. I stuck it in the ground and opened the second one. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked. He sounded curious, not angry. "Signaling. Someone will see this." "Who will see it?" "We're alone here." "Someone will come. A ranger or another camper or..." I lit the second flare and planted it next to the first. There are no rangers here. No other campers. Just us and the river. I lit the third flare. The red light cast everything in a hellish glow. Smoke rose in thick columns, but there was no wind to blow it away. It just hung there, getting thicker. "Please stop," Marcus said. "You're just making it harder." "Harder for who?" "For both of us." I lit the fourth flare. The last one. The smoke was so thick now I could barely see Marcus through it. Good. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to see his two bright eyes and his wrong smile. The flares won't bring anyone, but they might attract attention you don't want. What's that supposed to mean? We're not the only things here. The river brought us, but it brought other things too. Things that have been here longer. Things that don't like light. I should have thought he was lying, trying to scare me. But his voice was serious, almost worried. Almost like the real Marcus again. The flares began to dim. One by one they sputtered and died. The smoke lingered, but the light faded. The afternoon, or whatever it was, returned. I stood in the smoke, defeated. Marcus was right. No one was coming. No one could see us. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. He stood and walked toward me. I didn't back away this time. I was too tired. "I wish I could make you understand. It's not so bad, really. The river takes care of us. We don't get hungry or tired or sick. We just are. Forever." "Forever," I repeated. The word felt heavy. "Or until the river decides to let us go." But I don't think it will. I think we're part of it now, part of the current that flows both ways. He reached out and took my hand. His skin felt normal, warm, alive. That made it worse somehow. If he'd felt cold or wrong, I could have pulled away. But he felt like Marcus. "Come with me," he said, "to the water. Let me show you what I saw. Then you'll understand." I should have said no, should have run back to the RV and locked myself in again. But I was tired of resisting, tired of being scared. And maybe some part of me wanted to understand, wanted to see what Marcus had seen that changed him. We walked to the river together, hand in hand. The water rushed past, flowing both ways, going nowhere and everywhere at once. Marcus stepped in, pulling me with him. The water was cold, then warm, then cold again. It felt like standing in multiple rivers at the same time. "Look down," Marcus said, "into the water. Look at your reflection." I looked. At first I just saw myself. Dark hair, pale face, scared eyes. Then, slowly, the image began to change. My reflection smiled when I didn't, blinked at the wrong times. And behind me, in the water, I saw other reflections. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All the people who'd come to this campground to Site 17 and never left. They were all still here, in the water, in the current that flowed both ways, trapped in the moment between arriving and leaving, the space between directions. "Do you see?" Marcus asked. I saw, and the seeing changed everything. "We're going to be okay," Marcus said. "All of us. We're together now." And the terrible thing is, I believed him. That was 3 months ago, or 3 days, or 3 years. I don't really know anymore. The sun still hangs at the same angle. The river still flows both ways. Marcus and I still live in the RV at Site 17. Sometimes new campers arrive. They check in with Deb, or the thing that looks like Deb, and set up at other sites. They try to leave just like we did. They get lost on roads that only circle back. They see the river flowing wrong. Eventually, they understand. Some of them join us by the water. Others stay in their RVs, resisting. It doesn't matter. Time doesn't move forward here, so there's no rush. Everyone comes to the water eventually. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because some part of me still remembers being Emily Parker, the woman who came here on a Thursday afternoon in September. The woman who had a life beyond this campground, beyond this impossible river. Or maybe I'm writing it because you're reading it right now, wherever you are. And if you're reading this, you might come here too. You might look for Riverview Pines on a map, curious about the place where rivers flow backward. You might think you'll be different, that you'll figure out how to leave. You won't. But that's okay. We're here. We'll be waiting for you. The water is fine.